Hi, you are listening to Gila Nehemia, Sacred Erotic Self-Love Mentor, Poet, and Author. This is the collaboration Ascension Healing Series with James Kawainui.
Yes.
Okay, I had to practice that one before the interview, so I'm so glad I got that right. I'm really excited that he is here. James and I have very similar ideas on things, and I'm just excited for this interview and what it brings. I wanted to introduce him, so those of you that do not know who James is, I will say a few words about him. I'll give you a little bit about his bio. He's a Native Hawaiian healer and an expert specializing in chronic pain and trauma release. Through his Hawaiian ancestral connection, James is a trusted guide and mentor who is able to read and clear blockages from your energy flow, whether they're due to trauma, illness, or passed down through your generational connection. You will experience freedom, renewed hope, and a deeper connection with the body and soul beyond what you imagine is possible. As a child, James overcame a rare and life-threatening form of polio with the love and healing touch of his grandmother. His compassion and understanding come from a deeply personal level, and he has devoted his life to helping you live a positive, productive, and pain-free life. Wow, that is amazing. I didn't realize that, James. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that, because now you piqued my interest. I want to know.
I actually am one of the people that got the polio from the vaccine.
Oh my God.
And so, you know, when you're about what, 6 months old is when you start getting all the
Yeah.
vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got the polio vaccine, and I got sick a couple of months later. And my grandmother adopted me when I was born, and so she took me to the doctor, and the doctor sent me to the Shriners Hospital in Honolulu. And over the course of a few months, I got progressively worse, and to a point where I was completely paralyzed. So neurologically, my body was breaking down, and I was completely paralyzed. My grandmother told me, or my mom told me the story later on, of the doctors coming out and telling my grandmother, "There's nothing that we can do for him. He's going to die." And my grandmother, in her infinite wisdom and like boundless love for me, just kind of looked at all of them and went, "Yeah, right." And so she showed up. She started showing up at night when everybody went home with her bottle of homemade coconut oil. So like this, I'm talking, you know, this is 60 years ago. There wasn't commercial coconut oil. You know, the Hawaiians made it by grating the coconut and squeezing it themselves. And so she came with her bottle of coconut oil, and she basically massaged me back to life. In Hawaii, they call it lomi lomi. Lomi lomi is the kneading, the moving of energy, right? So through the hands,
Mm-hmm.
you move the energy, you know? So I started to get better. And the doctors were like, "Wow, what happened?" And my grandmother just smiled. And that was kind of the connection and the beginning of the transfer of what Hawaiians call mana, the essence, the life force essence. And my grandmother handed me something that I left sitting, kind of hibernating for over 40 years. And when I was in my early 40s or late 30s, something started to change in me. And I started, let's just put it this way, people started showing up telling me that they were in pain, and I was doing things, and it was going away. And I was in awe, and they were in awe, and it didn't make sense to me. And through that process, and that was almost 25 years ago, that this whole idea of healing and helping people started for me. And in that journey was this understanding that I come from a lineage. I have a lineage that goes back in Hawaii over 20 generations. And that lineage is of the people that did this work. So she handed that in some ways. In Hawaii, there's this transfer of energy between generations or between teachers to students. And I didn't understand that for a really long time, but I knew that as I got older, that something had happened there. And it was very secretive because nobody in my family, my mom and her sisters, who were my grandmother's daughters, right, knew that she did any of that work. And I didn't understand it because when she was in her 50s, when I was about maybe 4 years old, she had a stroke, which paralyzed the left side of her body. So she couldn't enunciate and talk. And so it really frustrated her that that didn't happen. But at that point, the energy had already been transferred. So, and it's really cool to now be a father and a grandfather, because I see how that mana, that energy, the I don't know how you want to call it, but is in my daughter, because there are things that she does, and also in my grandsons, because they're experiencing energy on a different level and are seeing things. And when my oldest grandson was like 12 years old, he started having nightmares, but the nightmares was the ancestors visiting him. So, and I sat with him and we talked about it, and we did a couple of things, and then he realized, oh my gosh, and this was really a cool thing. And I know we didn't want to go off on this, but
yeah, let's do it.
The people that were showing up to him were people that he never met, and it was my daughter's, my ex-wife's parents. So it would have been his great grandparents. They came and he didn't even know who they were. And then one day his mom had a picture and he was looking at that and he went, who is that? And she said, that's Granny and Papa. That's my grandparents. And he said, those are the people that were coming to me in my dream.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So that's how the energy moves from generation to generation, and so yeah, and I love this relationship that I have with them, because they call me and they talk to me and they say, Papa, this is happening, or I saw this, or explain this to me, and so I'm grateful that I get to pass that knowledge down to them, which is the same thing I do with everybody that I work with, on a daily basis. I mean, like, even having done this for so long, like every time I do it, it's like I'm in awe of the process. Like I never get tired of watching that and just going, thank you for letting me be a part of this,
Thank you for sharing that. That is so beautiful. I love that generational lineage coming down, and just the story of your grandmother. Wow, that's just such an intense story.
We all have that connection, though. We all have
I know we do.
And you know that more than anybody else, because it's of the work that you do.
Right. Yes, I completely agree. Those of you who are new to me, like I do similar kind of work. I help especially women, but men as well, with chronic trauma, to heal their hearts and to really open up to their full heart's desire. I agree with you. It's always cool. I just got a message from a client of mine, and it was like, it's interesting also about anger. I'm coming from a domestic violence situation, and lots of tyrannical kind of masculine energy. So I had this kind of buried anger and was afraid of it. But I transform it now. Like, I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm able to transform it and use it for my benefit. So anyone who's listening, it's like some of those shadowy aspects to ourselves are actually, they're gems. They are what fuels us to our own mission.
Totally. I know that for years. I could feel that anger, and it was seething, and it was right underneath. And I consciously avoided confrontation, because I knew that if I snapped, I was going to hurt somebody really bad, and I could feel that. And I was like, "Oh my God, give me an excuse, to excuse my language, kick your ass, because if you do, I will." And that anger scared me. It really did, because it was sitting in there, and it took me a while. I came to understand what that was and to come to terms. And you're right. So we transform that and we start using that as energy in our work, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
High
super
five.
powerful. Virtual high five. um, yeah, it's super powerful. And I wanted to go over some of the things that we said we were going to talk about today. And I also
Sure.
will come back to your book, because I think that that's also super important that you're collaborating with. How much does stress affect our everyday life? I know you deal with a lot of clients, and I think it's actually a very important topic right now. So I'd love for you to expand on that.
I think it's a very important topic because people don't understand the physiological aspects of it as well as the emotional, psychological aspect of it. You know, stress automatically puts our body in a different position. And so when we talk about fight or flight or survival, and maybe this is one of the ways that I talk about stress with people, right? The deepest, oldest programming that we have inside of us is survival. And stress triggers that survival response inside of us, right? And so when we go into, and I'm just like, this is really quick overview from a physiological standpoint, okay? When the stress gets triggered, whatever it is, stress, trauma, anxiety, it signals the brain and the body to go into certain reactions, right? And so the body sends neurochemical messages the brain does to the body, and the body reacts. So the first things that react when we get into a stressful situation is our breathing changes, right? Our breathing gets short and shallow. Our heart rate increases because I need more energy in that moment to be able to do whatever I'm getting ready to do, which is either run or defend myself, right? And even if there's no physical enemy in front of us, the mind doesn't even understand that it's actually reacting to it anyway, right? And so the shortness of breath, the increase in heart rate, and then all our energy literally goes out to our extremities, because I have to either fight or I have to run. So all the energy and all the blood basically just shifts. And internally inside of our organs, all our organs go on standby. Everything else goes on standby because the only thing that's important in this moment is survival, right? And so then this is where everything starts to go offline, okay? I'm in a constant state of survival. I put food in my body, right? My digestive system is offline because all my energy is diverted to someplace else. And it takes what? 2/3 of your energy when you eat to process food. And if you don't have the 2/3 of your energy to process food, what happens to your food? Doesn't get digested, you don't get the nutrients, it gets stuck in your system, and then long term, and we're talking about chronic, you know, a generation ago, you know, Crohn's disease wasn't even something that was talked about every day, you know. People didn't have irritable bowel, but there's lots of other reasons. There's food and processed food and everything else like that. And we don't even have time to go into that. But from that stress point, that's what's happening. And in the brain, what happens when you're in a stress mode is all the different pieces of your brain segment and fight for control. So there's no clear thinking when you're in stress. There isn't. All the different parts are fighting. There's no cohesiveness. There's no clarity. I can't make decisions. And my gosh, and I know everybody that's going to listen to this, right, have that experience. And then there's another piece. Societally and culturally, we are designed now to stay inside of that stress. So we're setting ourselves up for long-term illness, for disease, for physical breakdown of the body. I mean, it's crazy. So it's probably the biggest piece of the work that I do, besides everything else that we're talking about with the pain and all of that. But people being able to manage their stress right now, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, just I know it's slightly off topic, but you know, I think that what you said, many of the things that you said were very, very powerful, and the fact that we are living in this bubble of stress, you know, constantly. And sometimes it's very hard for people to get out. You know, I would talk to a lot of people, you know, sometimes high achievers or, you know, in very stressful kind of jobs. And I think we all are on some level, you know, in stressful jobs. And, but not even feeling like they could take a break, you know, like a day, you know, even just a day off of work, and work could even be in your house, right? So you can't even leave your premises, you know, because you feel like if you leave, oh my God, everything's going to fall apart, you know. And I think that, you know, that's why it's so important to just be aware of what is happening and how to, you know, how to handle those situations. But also, I think on a larger level, you know, what I'm looking at is like, how did this happen? You know, we won't go there right now, but I mean, just I just thought a thinking point for anyone listening. How, you know, how did it happen?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The other piece inside of that, and how do we stop that, is because over time it creates habituated patterns.
Yeah.
And the patterns then become our way of operation, right? And so when we start to realize we're living a stressful life, I actually have to make myself walk away. I used to work 7 days a week. And about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, my wife looked at me and she said, we cannot do that anymore. And so there's 2 days off a week now. And you're right. And now we own a house, right? So guess what the 1 day off is? Working on the house. But it's things that I love to do, right?
Exactly. That's the difference. Right.
But there's a difference. So it's not the stress of anything, but it's those habituated patterns that make it so hard to change. And when we do this over time, the behavior becomes the pattern over time. So that's why it's so hard to change. That's why I can say that I want to change, but actually doing it is a process. And you understand that, and you probably take people through that process of undoing that pattern.
Right. Exactly. And I would stretch it to say that I feel that at some earlier time period, you know, humanity wasn't there, and you know, we became more and more like this for a variety of different reasons. But
we don't even have time to talk about.
We don't have time to talk about that. We can maybe schedule another one for that one. But I do think we're in this precipice of changing that over time.
It's pushing us to what do they call those when you have that? I can't remember what that is. It's a crisis moment.
Yes. And I think many of us have had that and are trying to now find a balance. Actually, a lot of people are coming to me now and being like, I cannot do this anymore. My work is traumatizing me. Someone just told me today, my work is traumatizing me. And I actually had a similar experience at one point where when I left, I just walked out. Like, that's it. But so, yeah, finding that balance. So that is super important.
I did the same thing. I walked away as well.
Yeah, it's and you're right. Like it became my norm. I was completely stressed out, and I thought it was my personal life, but I was also my work life. You know, so I couldn't run. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah. Well, the only way to go at that point is in.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah, I just said, I don't know why. I just got to go. I'm going by. So we're going to go back to the questions. Sure. Do you know what your energy feels like in relation to everything else in your world?
You know, because we're in that stressful situation, and everything kind of ties together, right? But because we're in that stressful situation, we tend to live in our minds. And I'm going to say that to all of you, you live in your head and not in your body. And so not being able to feel the energy, because I can't even feel my physical form. I can't tell you how many people I've gotten off my table in the past, right? And I remember the first time this happened to me, a lady burst into tears, and I looked at her, I said, oh my God, what did I do? And she said, you didn't do anything. I said, what's wrong? And she said, nothing's wrong. And she went, I can feel my feet. And that was such an odd comment to me. And yet it made sense. And I can't tell you how many times over the years where I felt that, where people go, oh my God, I can feel my feet. Oh my God, I can feel my butt sitting in the chair. Oh my God, I feel the energy running down my legs, you know? And again, that's another big part of what I do with people, is putting people back in their bodies. Most people have no concept of anything below here. And if you don't have a concept and a relationship with your body, how are you going to know when it doesn't feel good until it gets chronic, or you get sick, or it becomes an illness, or it becomes a disease?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You know, I work with women and men on this, you know, in terms of sexuality. Like they're totally in their heads, and it becomes very stressful, you know, to have their needs met or to even have desire.
Yeah.
So I hear you, and I really feel like, you know, part of the medical establishment is really, you know, perpetuating that in a way. You know, it's like, come to me, I'll give you this drug and you'll feel better. You know, you'll like forget about your body again. You know, it's like,
Don't
that's
even
not
talk
really.
about me. Yeah. Don't even talk to me about personal responsibility, because our society's learned to give our responsibility for our health and our well-being to someone else, some stranger that doesn't know me, that
Right.
says that they know better. So, and I'm going to say it this way, and excuse my profanity, because who fucking made them God?
Yes, no,
Because
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I actually, I'm with you on that, you know, especially because I feel like we can heal ourselves, you know, when we, and little things happen to me all the time, you know, and I'm just like, even my children, I'm just like, okay, where does it hurt you? Like, what is it? What's going, you know, we go into a whole talk about it, sending love there, you know, spending a little bit more time with that part of your body, you know, and I feel like people, I feel like some of us, like you and I, you know, I feel like I'm a little bit in a bubble because I don't think I know what's going on out there. But I think it's really important for anyone's listening today to know, you know, James and I are here to assist you in connecting with yourselves, you know, to really understanding all parts of yourselves, because we're vast and we have so much wisdom within, you know,
we do.
and what we do is we help you to unlock that wisdom. You know, we're
I'm
just
all about giving
conduits.
people tools.
Yes,
I'm all about giving people tools. I don't want you to be a permanent client. I want you to learn how to do this for yourself.
exactly.
Seriously, you
Yes.
know? And I mean, I've gotten to the point in my life through my growing of awareness, right? That I ask my body in the morning what it wants. Because, you know, just because I want a cup of coffee, doesn't mean that my body wants a cup of coffee. And I watch that. And I laugh because there's something that I've been wanting for like the last 8 months, and it keeps telling me no, 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 no. So there must be something inside of it that I'm not supposed to have. But I ask about 2 or 3 times a week, can I have pancakes? And it goes, no. And they're gluten-free pancakes, and you know, and it's still so. But I've learned to listen to my body in that way, you know.
Listening, I think, is so important. And I just wanted to ask you, since we're talking about this, like how you talked about the table. Like, are you taking your clients on a table? I just, if anybody's listening, that was a question I was thinking, so maybe they might have that same question.
You know, even before COVID, I was shifting away to an online platform. Um, Having people come to me, I love when people come to me. I love when I can put my hands on them, and at the same time, that limited my ability to help people. You know, um, it blows my mind to think that I have clients in 5 different continents right now. So like, it's insane for me to think that way. And yet my expanding my awareness and also trusting in the process helped me to reach out farther and farther. So, you know, yeah, clients in the United States and Canada. I have clients now in Central America, you know, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe, starting to have clients now, you know, on the African continent, you know, clients from India. So it's like a really interesting thing to watch all that happen, you know. Energy is energy, you know that. And it doesn't matter if we're in the same room or we're on the other side of the world, the ability for us to connect is still there. So to answer your question, I haven't done any in-person work with anybody in over a year.
Okay.
And still my practice grew because I was able to reach out farther.
Right. Right. Fantastic. Thank you for
But
sharing.
everybody wants to come and see me because I live in Sedona.
Yeah, so if you're interested in your and you'd like to visit Sedona, contact James, but contact him anyway because he can help you online as well. So how do we connect to our inner knowing, James? What are some techniques that you can share with our listeners?
Gosh, you know, I tell you the easiest way, and I talk to people about this all the time, and they kind of look at me like, really? And I say, yeah, really, just breathe. The doorway in is through your breath, and the doorway in is into reconnecting with your physical form. Because when we reconnect with our physical form, we will feel the ache in the shoulder or the uncomfortableness in our stomach or whatever is going on, right? At that point, then it's not conceptual. It's not my mind doing this. It's me feeling what's happening. And if there's the shortest way possible, it's time to start feeling again, but not feeling from here, feeling from here. Right? And so the beginning of awareness is the beginning of this idea of bringing in my focus and connecting it to my energy inside of me. So having the experience of feeling energy as it runs through my body. And you can do that through breath. So even if we all just stop and you just close your eyes for 10 seconds, right? And all I want you to do is to focus on your breath. And when I say focus on your breath, what I mean is feel the air moving through your nostrils, right? Feel the air expand and contract in your lungs. Feel yourself exhale. This is not a mind exercise. This is a body exercise, right? So feel, breathe in, and then breathe out. Your total awareness in this moment is on that feeling of the air as it moves in and it moves out of you. Your chest rises and contracts. And then as you start to practice that more and more, underneath that is what Hawaiians call the mana. In some cultures, they call it prana or chi, whatever you. Every breath that we take has life force energy. When we can focus on our breath, we start to connect to that life force energy. And that life force energy comes into our bodies. And then this is the cool thing I do with people, and it blows their mind. Like they breathe for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I said, so you feel that tingling sensation in your body? And they say, yeah. I said, good. Move it to your right elbow. And then they go, oh my God, it's moving. And then I go, okay, great. Bring it back. Drop it down lower into your body so it's sitting right where your navel is. And so we start to play with that. And this is the reconnection that we have with our physical form. So if I was going to give everybody a hack, that I would say, you deserve at least 3 minutes, 5 minutes every day where you just sit quietly and you let everything as much as possible release. And all you do is focus on yourself.
Uh-huh.
What a concept.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I would say that when we do that, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour, whatever time you can give.
Whatever time you have.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't need to, the efforting stops and you allow. And I think that is a process of receiving and surrendering and trusting, because we're efforting a lot. We're thinking we need to control, and it's, this is the inner knowing. This is what James is talking about, really connecting to that and allowing.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about that connection. And you're right. That quiet space, and you could call it whatever you want to. Some people call it meditation. I call it a daily practice. What is it? Take the word that makes it hard away and just make it as easy as possible, right? when I work with people, I actually do this for people. Part of their homework is I said, I want you to create a reoccurring timer on your phone, on your computer, somewhere. If they're having really challenges, I say start every 5 or 10 minutes. And when that timer goes off, I want you to check where your breath is, or I want you to check where you are. And so you start to recognize that the more I stay inside my body, the more I am aware, right? And if we go all the way back to the stress, one of the things that people realize, and I know you work with people on this as well, Gila, is that most people are holding their breath and they're not even recognizing that they're holding their breath. So we're not even allowing that life force energy, holding my breath, and I don't even want to live because I'm not going to breathe. And that's all outside of our conscious thinking.
Right, right. And you could use that metaphor of holding your breath is like fear, having all these patterns that are stopping you from moving. This is a part of holding your breath. You're
not wanting to, wanting to live your life.
Exactly. Which leads us to our next question. Is your behavior and your mindset your own?
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not even sure if we have time to answer that question fully.
Yeah, these are all huge topics in and of themselves, but I think just a little inkling can help some of our listeners get a sense of where you're coming from.
Scientists have proven, they've done extensive studies on this. Scientists have proven that by the time you're in your mid-30s, 95% of what you do on a daily basis are habituated patterns. So we're not even conscious most of the time of what we're doing, much less what we're saying. So when we start looking at that whole idea of that, right, it's really start to become aware of what I do on a daily basis. I mean, and I used to do this, and this is one of the, when we used to commute to work, that kind of changed, the world's changed a little bit, but, you leave work, you remember leaving work, and then all of a sudden you're in your driveway. And then you go, ooh, or if you even get to the point of going, wait a minute, I'm at home. How did I get home? Right? But that's how unconscious our days are. That's how habituated our patterns are. So that whole bringing back into the body is the beginning of that kind of awareness. And we have to build. You're not going to go all the way straight to being aware. If you do, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're going to give up. Okay, you have to understand that this is a gradual process of the steps of becoming aware. Like, oh my God, I'm not breathing. Breathe. Right? Oh, this is what my body feels like. Oh, this is what I'm thinking. Oh, I don't want to think that way. Then realizing, oh my God, I have a choice not to think that way and to do something else. Oh, I don't want to be in those relationships anymore. Oh, I don't want this job because it's not making me happy, right? Having all those understandings inside so that we can actually start to change, because then the choice is, I'm choosing to take care of myself, right? And I say this to my clients all the time. I love me, or I care about me so much that I will do this for myself. And a lot of people have a hard time saying that. And I know if all of you that are here this morning, if you were even to stop and think that, it would feel very uncomfortable. I guarantee you. Not very many people can say that. And yet, when we get to that place, is when everything else starts to change, right? And you know this, you like this. As soon as I take responsibility for my life and realize that everything is happening because of me and what I'm doing, the game changes, the board changes, everything changes.
Yeah,
right?
So true. I mean, it started really for me when I had my first coach, and I was dating again, and I was like, I can't go out, my kids need me. My daughter was like, why are you going out again, Mom? And I was just like, I can't do this. And she was like, you need to do it for you. When you prioritize you, your children will understand how to prioritize themselves. And
That's exactly right.
Super important for parents. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, we think we have to give it to our children, like take them to the next game or take them to the next whatever, you know, do this for them. But how do you feel? You know, that energy gets transferred if you're not doing it with your full heart and soul and desire. Then just don't do it. You know,
Yeah.
they may cry once or they may, you know, rant or whatever, but it's for everyone's benefit.
I'm working with a woman right now, has a family, because of COVID, everybody's at home, nobody's going to school, even her husband's at home, and it was a stress. And she was just watching her. That it was like a pressure cooker, and she was watching her family. She said, "James, I can't take this." I said, "Well, we're not going to worry about all of them. We're just going to work with you." And we started working on watching where her reactions were and how she was. You know, yeah, the milk got spilled. Is it like life or death? No, let's just clean this up together. And so she shifted, and now she's watching her family in a different place. The stress level in her family just like went down like crazy. And she's okay. But the thing that she started doing was she started taking care of herself first. And
So
to and
important.
when we started that idea of that seemed so foreign, and she said, this doesn't make sense. If I spend more time on myself, I don't have time to spend with my family. And I said, no, watch, I guarantee you. And it's happening. So
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. It's super important,
yeah.
you know, scenario and example for anyone who's listening. And this leads into the next question. You know, are we living other people's patterns?
Ooh, again, that's like we come back and talk about this for hours. When they How's the easiest way to explain this? So when we come in, I use the analogy of the computer because it's perfect for me. Okay, and that made me understand. I'm not a computer guy. I'm definitely not a geek, computer geek or IT or anything else like that. But when the visual of that, and then I say my team, when my ancestors showed me this, and if they said, okay, use this because people are going to understand this. This is your day and your age, right? When we're born, our computer and the hard drive and the processing system are all there, right? Yet what we don't really understand, and we're starting to understand through science, is that the operating system comes with pre-programmed ideas. And the pre-programmed ideas are the things that come in through our ancestral lineage, okay? The DNA has the programming for some of the trauma, some of the behavior, some of the actions that we have inside of our lives. Just let's put it that way, right? And so people think that we only inherit facial structure or physical features or things like that, but we also inherit mannerisms. We also inherit behavior. Okay, and so all of that is part of the original operating system. And then, but for the first 5 or 6 years of our life, and the psychologists will tell you this, right? The child is absorbing everything in its world, everything. It doesn't have the ability to discern right from wrong. It just observes everything as what it is. We don't start to make choices or see what's going on until we're somewhere between 5 and 8, 10 years old. And then, you know, in our preteens, then we start to get an idea of what our world is. Yeah. So in that period of that first 5 or 6 years, we are absorbing everything. So we're watching how my parents interact. We're watching what happens on TV. We're watching the whatever it is that we're paying attention to, how my parents interact with their parents, the conflict or the continuity inside of that. And it goes, well, okay, must be how people live. So if I come from a traumatic family where the dad yells or the mom is very strict, however that looks, then it teaches me how to do that. And then as I go through my life, that is the pattern then that starts to play over and over and over. But because we're not even aware of it, it's just back here running. And in some ways, I'm just the actor in the play, replaying the same scene over and over again. The people around me change. but I keep doing it. And that's when we get the calls, right? Where the relationships always are the same guys, right? Or these things happen over and over and over again. I find friends and then I lose friends, or these people, and this is a favorite one of mine, these people continue to screw me over. Yet there's not even a place of going, well, that's kind of how I learned to do this, right?
Right. No, that's so true. And I think that even like, I'm just thinking about myself as you were talking, like, even when I was conscious of certain things and thinking I need to stop them, I still walk straight into another like set of words, right? And I was like, okay, I'm not doing it that way. But it was just like, it was a parallel. It's like, okay, it's not actually that way, but it's very similar in this lane, Yeah. And it's actually completely, like you said, shifting our behavior, our habits, our thought patterns. It's like, I thought it was actually quite challenging for me to really, totally be aware.
People. It's challenging for most people because we're talking about changing something that we've been doing over and over and over again. Right. And so breaking down that pattern, and that pattern is because the mind is running it without my conscious awareness.
Right.
Right. And that's why I said the game changes when I start taking responsibility, because I'm going, oh, I'm saying all those disparaging thoughts about myself. Well, no wonder other people mirror that back to me. I'm no good. So the people I meet tell me I'm no good, right? I'm not strong enough. So then I find things in my life that are not strong enough. I'm not capable of love. So the people I attract will not love you. They talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy. This is it.
Right. And I think even in some cases,
watch it. Yeah.
I realized this, like, I used to feel like, okay, and love was always my issue. And so it was like, they didn't love me, but in actuality, it was me sometimes projecting it and not understanding it. It was about me taking responsibility. I want to come back to that, because you mentioned it a few times, and even in our health, like abdicating, you need to do this for me, but when are we doing it for ourselves? Exactly. And that's when it all shifted for me, when I realized I got to do everything for myself. Everything, every single part of your life is all about you.
So challenge here for everybody. Can you sit there inside of yourself, and you don't have to answer to anybody. This is you answering to you, and say, I love who I am. And feeling the uncomfortable part of that inside of all of us. Because when I get, or the closer I get, or as I learn to love myself, then other people will also love me. It's a really, and I'm going to just kind of do a sidestep about relationship, because relationship is really interesting. We fall in love with someone, right? And then what happens is we give them the responsibility of loving us. Okay. But here's the kicker. We never tell them what that looks like or feels like, or what I feel like inside of that. And then when they don't do it back to us, then we go, what the hell? How come you're not loving me? And there's never been a conversation of what it means for you, for me, right, to feel that love. And a lot of relationships end up that way, and a lot of relationships end because of that.
Yes. I mean, it's much deeper.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, no, we can go there for a long time. But and I would say, just on a note, is, to have that relationship with yourself first. Even in the middle of a relationship, take the time out. And it's okay. There's nothing. I think that we're in this era now where you can create your own relationship however you want. We're not living in these sandboxes anymore. I was in India over 2 years ago, sitting near where the Tibetans live, and in India, and on the newspaper was like, the new marriage is self-love. Two people who are completely loving themselves, coming as sovereign beings, and being in a partnership, and I was like, wow, in India, okay, cool. But this is the truth.
Yeah. And I want to say this as well too, because I think this is an important part, is that realizing that we may need help getting this done. I have the people I go to, seriously. I have my helper, I have my helpers, I have people, you know, the people that help me look at things inside of my life. And we have to get past the idea that says that we have to figure this all out by ourselves, because that's a recipe for disaster. Yeah, some people can, but most people can't. And reaching out for help is strength, because it says, I could use your help doing this, or I need some help figuring out how to do this so that I can be better at it, right? And so that first step is sometimes realizing that I might need some help. And even that, I know for me in the past, even saying that was really uncomfortable. Oh my God, right? And so find that help, you know, feel what feels right, but reach out to somebody if you're struggling, really.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. You can reach out to us.
Yeah.
And we
Oh
see
yeah, and
that.
I'm not doing. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not doing this to you know, to say reach out to me. I'm just saying, you know, if you need to, ask for help.
Definitely. No, I completely agree with you. I just wanted to share that if there is, you know, it's super important what you're saying, because, you know, we live in an interdependent world, you know, and I think that idea of independence, we need to do it on our own, I mean, no longer really holds a lot of weight, because in order to collaborate, in order to grow, we need each other. You know, we need each other to grow. That you know, anyone reaching out for help is actually an act of love and kindness towards yourself.
Yeah.
And it helps whoever you're working with grow as well. So it's necessary, you know, it's divine. If you believe in that, it's divine. It's supposed to happen that way. So if
Up
that,
until a couple hundred years ago as well, we lived in community. We lived in really strong community, and we relied on each other because we realized that there were other people that were more expert at some of the things that I did. And as we became more modern, we lost that idea of community and connection, and this idea of individualism. You know, there are obviously there are strengths to that, and yet there are detriments, there are weaknesses to that. And one of those is that thinking that we have to do this ourselves.
right, of course. I wanted to talk about the book that's coming out that you collaborated with other authors. What is it? It's about ancestral healing, isn't it?
It is, and the book is called The Ancestors Within, and it's been guided by this beautiful woman. Her name is Amy Gillespie, and there's 25 of us that agreed to collaborate on this book, and it was about reconnecting with your ancestors. It's about clearing the path and reestablishing that connection. The chapter I wrote is about healing ancestral trauma. And again, that's one of those topics that we could actually talk a lot about. But inside of that is just realizing that we are all connected to our ancestors, and there's a wisdom that's inside of that, of their lifetimes. And I'm just going to step aside to, somebody sent me something the other day that says that in 20 generations of grandparents and people in our family, there's 4,000 people. If that were just parents and father and mother and grandparents, right? And so think about that. There's 4,000 souls or ideas or understanding of wisdom that's available to me when I can open up to the space. And one of the thing that I wrote about in the chapter, because it was a personal experience of mine, is a connection to my ancestors, where they said, our pain is not your pain. Whatever happened to us is not for you to carry. Our wisdom is here for you. And that kind of is um, a theme throughout the book, because I've read a lot of the chapters and they're talking about the same thing. Connect to your ancestors, allow that wisdom to come through you, but not hold on to or look at how can I let go of their suffering and their pain. You know, we were talking about behaviors and patterns. This is part of that behavior and that pattern. So I'm really excited about the book, and and all the other authors in that book are really excited too. And the book is, the book goes live. The launch is May the 4th. The book goes live on Amazon in the Kindle form on April 29th. And
Oh,
so you know, in a couple of weeks,
yeah,
actually.
exciting.
So, and I had to look at what the date it was today. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm very proud of what I wrote. It was a beautiful story, and it was a personal story for myself. So.
Fantastic. So thank you. Thank you for sharing us a little preview of the book to come. And anyone who's interested in that, you can find it in Kindle on the 29th, as James has just said. And we'll put it in the notes, the exact title, so people can look that up. So that is super, super exciting. And you have some other projects coming on the way, if you'd like to share that with our audience, and ways to connect with you as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, my ancestors have been pushing me for the last 8 years or 10 years to write my own personal story. So there's a memoir coming. I can't even tell you what it's going to look like or anything else or when it's going to be out, but that's showing up sometime. I'm starting to do that now in a more focused way. I've committed to a couple other projects as well. A project that I'm doing with a friend named, her name is Kamali Vora. And we're doing a project on death and dying, so the dying process, and in relationship to caretakers and people that take care of themselves or take care of other people. So that project I'm really excited about. And then I have another friend who is doing a collaboration, but it's talking about sacred ritual. You know, that whole idea of sacred ritual is a buried archetype that's way deep inside of us, and that we really have no idea about. It's just like hearing drums and going to a different place, because it's that the DNA is inside of there. So how do we create ritual in our lives? You know, all societies had ritual. All societies did. There was a ritual for birth. There was a ritual for girls as they came into their moon. There was a ritual for boys as they stepped into manhood. And we've lost all of those rituals now. So there's this place where we're confused about identity. And I'm hoping that in that book, that's what we're going to address as well.
Really interesting. I was thinking about that, you know, I think that, I mean, just in my own life, just the rituals sometimes, you know, they bring up a lot of different ideas. And I know we're coming to a close, but I just wanted to share this, like, you know, I completely believe in rituals, and I'm really for it. As you actually talked about rituals, the drum came in my mind. So you said drum. So I was like, okay, we're totally connected on this. Yeah, what I was thinking about is sometimes I feel like some rituals can not feel good to some people, you know, even though they do them in their societies, and they can choose not to do it, but you can create your own, you know, you can create a family, you know, like I'm just sharing that with people, you know, if they want to, like, if that's something they want to mark, you know, I just talk about my son. He normally in Israel, we do bar mitzvahs, and he didn't want to do it. And I said, that's fine. You don't have to. But we did our own thing. You know, we went to India, we did some things that, you know, over there, and, you know, and he stepped into, it was a real passageway coming in. We went through a generational kind of ancestral healing in a way, because both of his grandparents were from there. So on both sides. So, you know, I created something for him, so I just wanted to be open, you know, like, I think that we can create, and we can, when we find meaning, where we find meaning, and that can shift and change. But I just wanted to bring that to light, because I think that you want to feel good about whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point, because then that's the part about listening to yourself, right? There are ritual, and you're right. You can create whatever ritual it feels that, and it feels good to you, as long as, as long as you feel in integrity with whatever it is that you're creating, right? And that the ritual that you create, or the ceremony that you create, empowers you, not at the expense of hurting other people.
Right.
I think I have to add that because
Yes, you
sometimes
do.
people do things in retribution or response to something else that's happening, but that's not what ritual and sacred ceremony is about. It's about self-empowerment. It's about understanding yourself deeper.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. And how can people get in touch with you if they're feeling called to connect with you or learn more about your services?
You know, we're a society of social media people. So, you know, if you want to, you can find me on Facebook. I think that's the easiest way. James Kawainui or James Keli'ipilani Kawainui. But if you Google James Kawainui, not Google, but do a search on Facebook, you'll find them. My website is really easy. It's www.jameskawainui.com. So you can reach out to, I mean, I made it really easy.
Good.
JamesKawainui@gmail.
I saw it'll all be in the notes, so no worries. You know, nobody has to remember. Write it down.
Yeah, you don't have to remember, but seriously, it's my name. If you just do my name and .com or my name @gmail, you know, and you'll find it. So
Fantastic.
and reach out, you know, if you want to and you need to, but you know, also, you know, reach out to someone. Reach out to Gila. I mean, she's in what she does, she's powerful and she's amazing. So there's resource right here, you know, so use that.
Thank you. Reach out to you too, James. I mean, you're amazing. There are so many powerful people, and I really feel that, you know, my 2 cents about this is if you feel connected to someone, you're listening to them, you're watching their YouTubes, you're, you know, following them, take the next step, you know, just at least have a conversation. And don't feel, sometimes I feel like people stay at arm's length because of a variety of different reasons they make up in their head, like we were just talking about patterns. So this is the time, this is the Aries new moon, even though we might be, you know, showing this, sharing a little bit later, but this is the Aries new moon, this is a time of action. So I would definitely ask people to take action on something that they feel passionate about.
And never know that, and leave this with the people with this too. Never underestimate the impact that you have or could have on other people. So as I share or as we share with you, share with someone else, you know, really share with someone else. So I'm just going to kind of put that plug in your ear.
That's great. There is a free offer you have. Can you share that? I'll be in the show notes, the Get Back on Track.
Yeah, to get back on track, it's a 30-minute session, and I call it a mini session and a consultation, and we kind of look at where you're at and just kind of take one thing. And so again, you heard me say this earlier, giving people tools are for me the most important thing. So if I can, in that 30-minute session, highlight something, give you something to walk away with that you can use or practice, then we've done well. And then, you know, we look at, is there something else that you may want to do? Is there anything else that I can help you with? But that 30 minutes, and that's why I call it Get Back on Track, because getting back on track, like something that puts me back in my center, something that helps me move forward in my life. So yes, please, you know, and if you haven't found out yet or realized that I love to talk, so.
So beautiful, and you have so much wisdom in you. So thank you for sharing.
I'm so grateful to have the opportunity and that you asked me to be here with you today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Do you have any closing words you'd like to say before we end?
It's time to start taking responsibility for your lives. It really is. As long as you keep abdicating that responsibility to other people, nothing's going to change. Okay. And it might be challenging and it might feel scared. And I'm still going to challenge you to take that step. Okay. It really is, because your life changes. But the thing about it is that as your life changes, the people around you will change as well. So you're not only doing this for yourself, you're doing it for them.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Super, super important. I think that's what, in all aspects of our life, when we begin to take responsibility, then we begin to really examine ourselves. And it's a journey worth taking, no matter where it leads. And sometimes we don't even know where we're going. It's definitely worth the effort. So thank you for sharing that. And if anyone wants to find out more about my services, I'll be putting them in the notes. It's gilanahemia.com.
Yeah, and you should. And you should.
Thank you. You're my first person I interviewed that's really going about both of us. So thank you so much. I love that energy. And I'm doing a collaborative book as well, starting very soon to be out probably later this year, on patriarchy, trauma, and ascension. And I do feel that there's definite connection between patriarchy, and it promotes some of the traumatic experiences some of us have because it's divisive. But we are moving to healing and moving out of that through our consciousness and awareness, which is much of our topic today. And that helps us to move into sovereignty and freedom, which is definitely what we talked about. So,
Well, the collective and humanity is moving out of it, kicking and screaming. And
yes,
so it's about us
yes,
understanding why all of that is happening, and to be able to get ourselves into alignment. So what your project is powerful in that way, you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I feel divinely guided to do this. Actually, it was completely, it just kind of popped into my mind. So that's coming up, and a variety of mentoring, as well as I have e-courses. So definitely take a look at all of our services. And if you're feeling called to connect with either of us, please do. We have a variety of free sessions, and you can chat with us, talk to us. We're very, very accessible people. And I want to just thank each and every one of you for listening today. And thank you, James, so much for sharing with us your wisdom.
If you took anything away, if you took just some small nugget today, then we both did our job.
Oh, thank you.